The twin suns of Xerion Prime shone brightly over the royal city of Elisar. The palace stood like a living jewel, its spires glowing with light drawn from the planet's crystal core. It was a day of peace, or so everyone thought. Inside the grand hall, banners of silver and gold hung high. The Queen of Xerion sat upon her throne, surrounded by nobles, generals, and diplomats. Among them stood one lone human, a soldier named only by his rank, lieutenant. He wasn't supposed to be here. The summit was meant for rulers, ambassadors, and advisors, not frontline soldiers. But the humans had insisted on sending one of their warriors as a symbol of goodwill. The Queen had agreed, though she found it strange that Earth chose a soldier instead of a politician. The lieutenant stood quietly near the entrance, watching the alien nobility with careful eyes. Their skin shimmered like glass, their movements slow and graceful. They looked fragile, beautiful but breakable. The Queen herself was radiant, her silver crown pulsing with a soft blue glow. She was both powerful and cold like a distant star. She spoke to the human delegate in a calm, regal tone. "Your people have come far, human of Earth. Perhaps one day we shall no longer fear you." The human smiled faintly. "That's what we're hoping for, Your Majesty. To replace fear with trust." Before anyone could respond, the lights flickered. A deep rumble shook the floor. Glass chandeliers swayed, scattering beams of color across the hall. Then came the sound, distant at first, then deafening, of an explosion. The walls trembled. The ground split. A shockwave blasted through the chamber, throwing guards and nobles alike to the floor. Screams filled the hall as fire and dust poured in from the ceiling. "Attack! Shields up!" shouted one of the alien guards. But the palace shields didn't rise. The defense systems were down. The lieutenant's instincts took over. He dove for cover, pulling a wounded guard behind a fallen pillar. The Queen was standing near the dais, her crown cracked, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Majesty," cried her captain. "We must evacuate." "Who dares attack my palace?" the Queen demanded, her voice trembling with anger and fear. Another explosion hit. Closer this time. The ceiling cracked open, revealing burning ships above. Enemy drones rained down through the smoke, firing plasma bolts into the crowd. The alien guards raised their rifles, but panic spread faster than discipline. Some fired wildly, others threw down their weapons and ran for the exits. The lieutenant saw the Queen standing alone in the chaos. Her guards were gone, the proud protectors of the crown fleeing like shadows in firelight. Without hesitation, the human ran toward her. "Stay low," he shouted, grabbing her arm as another blast tore through the hall. She stared at him, shocked. "Unhand me, soldier. I command you, A piece of the ceiling crashed down between them, shattering the marble floor. The heat was unbearable, the smoke thick. The Queen coughed, her royal tone breaking. He didn't wait for her permission. He pulled her behind a fallen statue, shielding her from the rain of debris. "We have to move," he yelled over the noise. She struggled to speak, but her voice was drowned by another explosion. He picked up a dropped plasma rifle and scanned the room. Dozens of alien bodies lay still. Drones hovered in the smoke, searching for survivors. The human's training kicked in, his movement sharp, focused. He aimed, fired, and one of the drones burst into sparks. Another followed. Then another. He moved like a machine built for survival. The Queen watched him, disbelief in her eyes. She had seen many soldiers and disciplined, trained, obedient, but this one fought with something else. Something fierce and raw. When the last drone fell, the hall went silent except for the sound of crackling fire. The once magnificent chamber was now a graveyard. The Queen stood shakily. Her silver robes were torn, her crown bent. "My guards. Where are they?" she whispered. "They ran," the human said flatly. "Ran?" She looked at him as if he had spoken blasphemy. "The royal guard does not run." He met her eyes, calm but grim. "They did." Her hands trembled. "Then I am alone." He slung the rifle over his shoulder. "Not yet," she blinked, surprised. "You would stay?" He glanced at the shattered ceiling. "I was ordered to guard this hall. You're still in it." For a moment, the Queen didn't speak. She had been raised to believe loyalty came from birth and oath, from duty and fear. Yet this human, a stranger from another world, stayed beside her while her own protectors fled. They made their way through the ruined corridors. Every few steps, another section of the palace collapsed. The air was thick with smoke and the metallic scent of plasma. The Queen's delicate face was streaked with dust. She stumbled once, catching herself on a broken column. The human turned back and offered his hand. She hesitated, pride warring with exhaustion, then took it. "You're kinder strange," she said quietly. "Been told that before," he replied. Outside the palace, the city was in chaos. Enemy ships hovered over the skyline, firing down at the capital. The royal fleet was nowhere to be seen. The queen's people scattered like frightened birds. "Who is behind this?" the human asked. She looked toward the burning towers. "It must be the Council of Lords. They have always envied my rule." He nodded, scanning for cover. "Then they'll come for you. We move now." He led her through a side passage toward the old transport hangar beneath the palace. The corridors echoed with distant screams. Statues of past rulers lay shattered, their proud faces buried in rubble. The queen paused before one of them, her mother's likeness. "I promised her this world would never burn again," she said softly. The human placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then let's make sure it doesn't end here." They reached the hangar, but the ships were gone. Only one shuttle remained, damaged and smoking. He checked the controls. "Dead. Can it fly?" she asked. "Not yet." The ceiling shook again. Another blast. They were running out of time. He pulled open a storage crate and found emergency rations, medical supplies, and an old combat pistol. He handed the pistol to her. "I do not fight," she said coldly. "You do now," he replied. The queen stared at the weapon in her hand, as if it were a serpent. Yet something inside her shifted. She was a ruler of billions, but for the first time she felt powerless. The human beside her didn't treat her like a goddess. He treated her like someone worth saving. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why risk your life for me?" He didn't look at her. "Because no one else will." Before she could respond, the hangar doors exploded open. Enemy drones poured in, their red eyes glowing through the smoke. The human pushed her behind cover and started firing. One by one, the drones fell, but there were too many. Plasma bolts struck the walls, sending sparks flying. The queen clutched the pistol, hands shaking. A drone landed behind the human, aiming for his back. Without thinking, she raised the gun and fired. The blast hit the drone square in its core. It fell, sparking. She stared at her own hand, trembling. I hit it." He turned briefly, smirking. "Nice shot, Your Majesty." Together they fought side by side, the firelight painting their faces. The queen, once untouched by battle, now moved with purpose. And the human, bleeding, coughing but unyielding, became her shield. When the last drone fell, silence returned. Smoke filled the air. The queen dropped the pistol, her voice barely a whisper. "All my guards. Gone. My empire. Burning. Yet you stay." He looked at her, tired eyes still steady. "I don't run, Majesty. Not while someone still needs me." She stared at him, at the dust and blood on his uniform, at the quiet strength in his voice. For the first time, the Queen of Xyrian felt something she had never known before: trust. The palace groaned above them. More explosions echoed in the distance. He turned toward the dark tunnel leading out of the hangar. "Come on," he said. "We're not safe yet." The queen followed him, stepping over the ruins of her own throne. Her crown was cracked, her robe torn, but her head remained high. As they vanished into the tunnel, the last of the palace collapsed behind them in a storm of flame and light. The tunnels beneath the palace were old, built in an age when the Xyrian king still feared invasion. The walls were made of black stone, cracked with age, lit only by the red glow of emergency lights. The queen moved carefully behind the human, her long robe dragging through dust and debris. The air was heavy with smoke and the faint smell of burning metal. Above them, the world roared with explosions. The war had reached the capital. The human held a small flashlight, its beam cutting through the dark. He stopped every few meters, listening. No words, no wasted breath. His movements were sharp, efficient, the behavior of someone who had survived battle after battle. The queen watched him closely. In her empire, guards were raised to obey, not think. But this human, he made decisions fast, like instinct ruled him. "Do you know where we are going?" she asked softly. "Out," he said simply. "Tunnels lead to the lower city. I saw the map when we came for the summit." She frowned. "You memorized our tunnel layout?" He nodded. Just in case. That answer stayed with her. He had studied her palace, not out of curiosity, but preparation. No alien she knew thought that far ahead. They passed old maintenance doors and broken pipes. Somewhere behind them, distant metal footsteps echoed. The Queen's silver eyes widened. "They're coming," she whispered. The human nodded. "Then we keep moving." They quickened their pace. The tunnel sloped downward, opening into a wide underground chamber filled with machinery, the power maintenance hub. Blue sparks danced on the ceiling where cables had snapped. Pools of oily water reflected their faces. The Queen coughed softly. "The dust was thick here. How can your lungs bear this?" "Practice," he said, half smiling. As they crossed the room, a low mechanical hum filled the air. Drones and small circular scout machines drifted down from the vents above. Their red sensors blinked to life. "Cover," the human said instantly. He pulled her behind a row of metal tanks just as the drones began scanning. She crouched low, her heart racing. She had never hidden before, never had to. In her world, others always stood between her and danger, but now it was only this one man. The drones beeped, searching. The human peeked around the edge, counting them. 3, maybe 4. He pulled out a grenade from his belt pouch, the last one. He pressed the switch and whispered, "Close your eyes." The Queen obeyed. A flash of light burst across the room. The sound of metal ripping apart echoed in the tunnels. When she opened her eyes, the drones were gone, shattered to pieces. The human stood up slowly, scanning for more enemies. Then he turned to her. "You good?" She nodded, still shaken. "You act without hesitation. That's how you stay alive." They kept walking. As they moved deeper, the tunnel opened into an underground transit line, old rail tracks once used by engineers. The lights here were flickering, throwing long shadows on the walls. The Queen slowed her pace, touching one of the rails. "These tunnels, they were built before my rule. I never thought I would walk them." The human looked back. "First time for everything." Her gaze softened. "You speak as if danger is normal." He shrugged. "Where I come from, it is." For a moment, she said nothing. She had read the reports about Earth, about its wild weather, dangerous predators, and unstable lands. The Council had called it a death world. Now, walking beside this one human, she began to understand why humans were so feared, and so different. They reached a service door leading upward. The human tested it, locked. He aimed his weapon at the control panel and fired. Sparks flew and the door slid open halfway. He grinned. "Ladies first." The Queen hesitated but climbed through. The air above was colder, fresher. They emerged into a narrow alley behind the burning palace. The once bright city of Elisar was unrecognizable. Towers were in flames. The sky was filled with falling ships and red plasma fire. The Queen gasped. "My city." The human looked at the burning skyline. "It's not over yet. We can still make it out." "Make it out?" she said bitterly. "You think I can simply leave? I am the Queen. My people." "Your people ran," he interrupted, not cruelly but honestly. "If you want to save them, you have to live first." She fell silent. His words stung, but they were true. They began moving through the alleys, staying low as patrol drones passed overhead. The human led the way, using every bit of cover he could find. They reached a destroyed plaza, once a garden of crystal trees, now just ash and broken glass. The Queen stopped beside a statue toppled onto its side, her own image carved in silverstone. She looked at it for a long time. "Do you ever feel powerless, soldier?" she asked suddenly. He didn't answer right away. "Powerless, no. Scared all the time. But fear's a tool. It keeps you sharp." She turned to him. "You truly think like a warrior." He met her gaze. "And you don't." Her lips pressed together, but she didn't argue. Instead, she followed him through the ruins in silence. They crossed into a half-collapsed metro tunnel. The ground trembled as ships passed overhead. The human found an emergency ladder leading deeper underground. "Down here," he said. "We'll lose them in the lower levels." She hesitated, looking into the darkness. "What if we are trapped? Then we fight." Something about the way he said it, calm, matter-of-fact, gave her strength. She nodded and climbed down after him. The tunnel below was lit only by flickering lights. Water dripped from the ceiling. The sound echoed through the vast chamber. They rested briefly. The human tore a strip from his uniform and tied it around a wound on his arm. The Queen noticed, frowning. "You are injured. I've been worse." "Let me see." He raised an eyebrow. "You a medic now?" "I am a queen," she said simply. "I heal my people when I can." She tore part of her robe and pressed it against his arm. her touch surprisingly gentle. "You didn't have to," he said. "I do," she replied softly. "You saved me." For a moment the air between them was still. The distant rumble of explosions seemed far away. Then came another sound, footsteps. Metallic, steady, growing louder. The human stood instantly, weapon ready. "They found us." A squad of armored soldiers appeared at the far end of the tunnel. Not her guards, but enemy troopers wearing the black insignia of the Council. The Queen's eyes went cold. "Traitors," the human glanced at her. "You can use that psychic power thing, right?" She nodded slowly. "Only for defense. I was not trained for war." Then start learning, the soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts lit up the tunnel. The human dove behind a pillar, returning fire with deadly accuracy. The Queen raised her hands. A blue shimmer formed around them, a shield of energy that deflected the incoming blasts. Sweat formed on her brow. Holding the barrier drained her quickly. "Can you hold it?" The human shouted. "Not for long!" He broke cover, sprinting forward. He fired twice, dropping 2 of the enemy soldiers, then rolled behind a fallen beam. The rest turned toward him. The Queen's shield flickered. She forced herself to keep it up, even as her body trembled. He threw a smoke charge, filling the tunnel with white mist. Then he moved, fast and silent, taking down the last 2 enemies at close range. When the smoke cleared, the Queen saw him standing there, chest heaving, covered in dust. The bodies of the attackers lay around him. She lowered her hands, the blue light fading. Her strength gave out and she fell to her knees. He rushed over and helped her up. "Easy, you did good." She looked up at him, her eyes wide. You faced them all alone." "Wasn't alone," he said with a small smile. "You held the shield." She almost smiled back. Almost. They moved again through the tunnels, following the path toward the city's lower districts. The further they went, the quieter it became. The noise of battle faded above them, replaced by the hum of underground machines and the whisper of moving air. After some time, they stopped near a maintenance station. The Queen sat down, exhausted. The human checked his ammo, almost empty. She watched him silently for a while before speaking. "You could have escaped when the attack began. No one would have blamed you." He looked at her. "Maybe. But I don't leave people behind." She tilted her head slightly. "Even aliens?" He smiled faintly. "Especially aliens." The Queen stared at him for a long time, trying to understand what made him different. To her, power had always meant control. To him, it seemed to mean something else, responsibility. She finally spoke, her voice quiet. "Human, you confuse me." "Good," he said, standing up. "That means you're still thinking. Now come on, the city's still burning, and I don't plan on dying down here." They walked again, side by side through the endless tunnels. The sound of their footsteps echoing behind them. Above them, the capital burned. Armies clashed. The Empire trembled. But beneath it all, a story was unfolding, one of courage, loyalty, and something the Queen had never believed in before. Hope. As they disappeared into the shadows, the Queen glanced once more at the man leading the way. This strange, fearless human who refused to run. For the first time in her life, she whispered words she never thought she would say. "May the stars protect you." Human. He didn't look back, but she saw the faintest smile on his face. The lower tunnels of GalacticPrime were ancient, forgotten by most of the Empire. No royal ever came here. It was a place of rust, dripping pipes and humming machines that worked endlessly to keep the city alive. The human walked ahead, his weapon drawn, flashlight beam cutting through the dark mist. The Queen followed, her robe torn and stained with dust. She had never looked less like a ruler, and never felt more alive. Each echo of their footsteps made her heart beat faster. The world above them had turned into fire and ruin. Down here, the silence felt heavy, like the planet itself was holding its breath. "How far?" she asked. "Not far," he replied quietly. "The power core chamber should be close. We can rest there," she frowned. "You seem to know more about my city than I do." He gave a short laugh. "Humans study what might kill them. Your city map was public data." That answer made her pause. He had prepared even for this, a possibility no one else imagined. As they walked, the tunnel opened into a massive chamber. The walls glowed faintly blue, powered by the energy lines that ran deep into the planet's crystal heart. In the center stood a huge circular core, slowly rotating, pulsing with light. The Queen stopped, awe and sadness mixing in her eyes. This is the heart of Elisar. Without it, the city would die. The humans scanned the area. Let's hope the council doesn't know we're here. But they did. A metallic voice echoed through the chamber. Your Majesty. Surrender yourself. Both turned sharply. From the far side of the chamber, armored figures emerged from the shadows. Soldiers in black and silver bearing the insignia of the council. The Queen's blood went cold. You dare approach your sovereign? The lead soldier stepped forward, removing his helmet. He was tall, pale, his eyes glowing faint blue, a sign of royal lineage. Forgive me, my queen, he said calmly, but the Empire needs strength, not mercy. Your rule ends today. The Queen's expression hardened. General Varek, I trusted you, and I served you, he replied. But you have grown weak. You let humans near our throne. You speak of peace while our enemies prepare for war. He raised his weapon. This world will survive without you. The human stepped in front of her, his own gun ready. She's not going anywhere, Varek sneered. A human protecting a queen? Pathetic, maybe, the human said. But at least I'm not a coward hiding behind betrayal. Varek's soldiers aimed their rifles. The Queen felt her pulse racing. The human moved slightly to the side, whispering to her, When I say move, run for cover. She shook her head. No, I will not run again. He glanced at her, surprised, but saw something new in her eyes. Not fear, defiance. Then fight, he said. Before Varek could give the order, the human opened fire. The chamber erupted into chaos. Energy bolts tore through the air. The Queen threw up her hands, forming a shimmering blue barrier that absorbed the first volley of plasma fire. The human rolled behind a support pillar, firing back with precision. Every shot he took hit its mark, knees, joints, armor gaps. He didn't fight for glory. He fought to survive. The Queen focused her energy, her voice steady. I can overload the chamber's defense field. It will stun them, but I need time. You've got it, he said. He moved like a shadow, drawing fire away from her. Bullets struck the walls, sending fragments flying. His body ached, his arm still bleeding, but he didn't stop. The Queen closed her eyes, channeling power through the crystal network beneath the floor. The air vibrated, humming with energy. Blue light spread from her hands, crawling up the walls like living fire. Varek noticed too late. Stop her, he shouted. The human saw one soldier rushing toward her and jumped from cover, tackling the attacker to the ground. He wrestled the rifle away and used it to blast 2 more drones. Then with a deep rumble, the Queen released the energy. A wave of blue light exploded through the chamber, knocking every armored soldier to the ground. Their weapons shorted out, their armor flickered, and silence fell. The Queen dropped to her knees, exhausted, breathing hard. The human ran to her, checking her pulse. I'm fine, she whispered. Just tired. He looked around at the unconscious soldiers. Nice work, Your Majesty. She smiled faintly. Perhaps your courage is contagious. But the victory was short-lived. The power core began to flicker violently, its light turning from blue to orange. The Queen's eyes widened in alarm. The overload, it's destabilizing the core.
Meaning?
If it ruptures, the entire city will collapse. Great, he muttered. One problem at a time. He grabbed her hand. We need to shut it down. They ran to the central console, dodging falling debris. The Queen placed her hands on the glowing control pad, trying to restore balance to the core. But the system was damaged. The feedback too strong. It's not responding, she said. He looked around, spotting a manual override valve on the far side. There, that might vent the excess energy. It's too far, she warned. You'll never reach it in time. He didn't answer. He just ran. Sparks fell from the ceiling as the chamber shook. The heat grew intense, waves of energy burning his skin. He climbed over broken pipes, coughing from the smoke. Every step felt heavier, but he pushed forward. The Queen called out, Stop! You'll die, he shouted back. Then at least it'll mean something. She watched him reach the valve, his hands gripping the wheel. The heat seared his gloves, but he turned it with every ounce of strength. The sound of rushing energy filled the room as the core's light slowly dimmed back to blue. The shaking stopped. Silence returned. He leaned against the wall, panting. That should do it. The Queen rushed to him, eyes full of disbelief. You risked your life for this city. For my people. He smiled weakly. You said they'd need a ruler. Couldn't let your planet burn. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. She looked at him, this human covered in ash, his uniform torn, his body trembling, and something inside her shifted. Her people always spoke of strength as power, control, dominance. But this man had none of those things. His strength came from something else, from the refusal to give up even when death stood inches away. "You're insane," she said softly. He chuckled. "That's what keeps us alive." Before either could speak again, a sharp sound cut through the silence, the click of a weapon. General Varric, burned and wounded, stood again, aiming his plasma pistol at the Queen. "You should have died when you had the chance." The human stepped forward instantly, placing himself between them. "Don't," he warned, Varric sneered. "You would die for her?" "Already decided that," the human said calmly. The blast came, bright and fast. The human shoved the Queen aside, taking the hit across his shoulder. He dropped to one knee, smoke rising from his armor. The Queen screamed, anger flooding her veins. She raised both hands, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. "Enough!" A surge of energy exploded from her body, hurling Varric across the room. He slammed into the wall and fell still. The Queen knelt beside the human. His face was pale, his breath shallow. "You fool," she whispered, tears forming in her silver eyes. "You would have died for me." He managed a weak grin. "Wouldn't be the first bad decision I've made." She tore a piece of her robe and pressed it to the wound. Her hands glowed faintly, channeling healing energy. "Stay still," he groaned. "Feels like fire. It's working," she said, her voice trembling. When the bleeding slowed, he looked up at her. "You're not what I expected." "Nor are you," she replied. "I thought humans were reckless savages." He smiled faintly. "Guess we're full of surprises." She looked around the quiet chamber. The fallen soldiers, the glowing core, the silence after chaos. Then she met his gaze. "This city owes you a debt that can never be repaid." He shook his head slowly. "Don't do it for me. Do it for them." "For them?" "Your people," he said. "The ones still alive. Make sure this wasn't for nothing." Her throat tightened. She nodded slowly. "I will." The two of them sat in silence for a moment, listening to the faint hum of the core. The human closed his eyes briefly, exhaustion finally catching up. The Queen stood and looked at the chamber once more. The power was stable, but the Empire was still in pieces. The Council would send more. The fight wasn't over, not by far. She turned back to him. "You saved my life again. But you can't fight alone forever." He smiled faintly. "I wasn't planning to. I've got a queen now, remember?" Her lips curved into a small smile. "Then rise, soldier. You are no longer just a guard. You are the shield of Xerion." He forced himself to his feet, pain etched across his face. "Shield, huh? Let's hope I don't break." The Queen looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw not a common soldier, but something far rarer, a being who fought not for empire or glory, but for what was right. As they left the chamber together, the human limping slightly, the Queen walked beside him, her head high. Above them, thunder rolled, the sound of new ships entering the sky. The next battle was coming, but this time the Queen was not alone. The streets above GalacticPrime were deathly quiet. Smoke curled from shattered towers, and the golden light of the twin suns was obscured by clouds of ash. The city was a ghost of its former self, but the threat had not passed. The Queen and the human had descended into the lower districts, hoping to find temporary safety, but enemy forces were already hunting them. The human limped slightly, still nursing his wounded shoulder, but his eyes were sharp, scanning every shadow. He moved ahead with cautious confidence, every step measured, every sound analyzed. "Do you ever rest?" the Queen asked quietly, following behind. "Not until we're safe," he replied. His voice was calm, almost matter-of-fact. "Even if you die?" she pressed. "Then at least I go standing," he said. The Queen looked at him closely. She had seen soldiers fall, even humans, and many had run. Yet this one stood firm even when the city burned. Something inside her shifted. The idea of courage, the weight of responsibility, suddenly had a human face. They entered a wide plaza, once the center of trade and diplomacy. Now it was rubble and fire. The remains of statues, fountains, and buildings were scattered across the ground. The enemy had not left the place untouched. From the shadows, a squad of black-armored soldiers emerged, their weapons aimed, plasma rifles glowing ominously. The Queen raised her hands instinctively. forming a shimmering shield of energy. The human crouched beside a toppled fountain, aiming his rifle. "They want you dead. Let's give them something harder to reach." The soldiers opened fire, plasma bolts scorching the ground. Sparks flew as the human rolled from cover, firing back with precision. Despite his wounds, he moved with speed and skill that belied his pain. The queen held her shield steady, her energy flaring with each blast. She could feel her strength waning, but she forced herself to hold it. Every bolt deflected was precious. "Your Majesty," the human shouted. "They're going to flank us. Move left." She pivoted slightly, her shield deflecting another volley. She noticed the determination in his eyes, the calm focus. He wasn't just defending her. He was controlling the battlefield, reading the soldiers, predicting their moves. He threw a smoke grenade into the center of the attackers. The air filled with thick mist, blinding the soldiers. The human darted forward, taking down one soldier after another with precise shots. The queen's shield pulsed, pushing back the remaining attackers. Hours passed in what felt like minutes. Every attack was met with resistance, every ambush countered. The human moved like a force of nature, never yielding, never retreating. The queen's energy began to fade. Her hands shook, sweat dripping from her brow. She looked at the human, fighting through exhaustion, bleeding, and pain. You can't go on like this," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't have a choice," he replied. "You do," she clenched her jaw. The city's survival depended on her now, and she could not fail. She raised her hands once more, letting a surge of energy flow through the plaza. The remaining soldiers were thrown back by the blast, scrambling to cover. The human saw an opportunity. "Now!" he shouted. Together, human and queen fought as one. He used cover and precision shots to clear the way, while she projected waves of energy, forming barriers and flares that pushed back the enemy. Every move complemented the other. Instinct and raw power, human determination and alien ability. A squadron of enemy drones entered from above, descending through the smoke. Plasma beams streaked across the sky. The human fired at them one by one, dodging sparks and debris. The queen focused, her energy pulsing, creating a dome of light that absorbed the drone's fire. Sparks danced across the surface, but the dome held, a fragile wall of hope. They were still surrounded, yet together they created a space no one dared enter. The human's wounds slowed him, his strength fading, but his mind was sharp. He set traps around the plaza, using overturned pillars, rubble, and debris to funnel the enemy into predictable paths. Every step they took was calculated, every moment exploited. The queen watched him, realizing that she had underestimated humans. They were not just reckless creatures. They were clever, adaptable, and stubborn beyond reason. "Why do you fight so hard?" she asked between breaths. He looked at her, a faint smile breaking through the grime on his face. "Because someone has to. Someone has to stand when others run. Someone has to protect what's right." Her heart pounded. His words were simple, but the truth in them struck deep. The empire she had ruled with confidence, relying on her guards and generals, had faltered. And yet here was one human refusing to bow, refusing to flee, refusing to die without purpose. Hours seemed like days. The queen's energy waned further. Her hands shook. She looked at him, concern and fear mixing. "You can't do this alone," she said. "I'm not alone," he replied. "You're right here." Another wave of soldiers charged. The human raised his weapon and fired, covering the queen as she forced another surge of energy outward. Sparks and fire lit the plaza in eerie blue and gold. A blast hit him in the side, knocking him to the ground. The queen rushed to his side, shielding him with her body. She poured energy into a protective bubble, deflecting the next attack. "You will not die," she shouted, tears forming in her silver eyes. He gritted his teeth, pain flashing across his face. "Don't waste your energy on me. Use it for the city." She hesitated, then nodded. "You are right." With renewed determination, she released a surge of energy so strong it threw the enemy back entirely. Their weapons sparked, armor cracked, and the remaining soldiers fled, terrified. The plaza was quiet. Smoke rose from the ruins, and the human sank to one knee, exhausted. The queen approached him, kneeling beside him. Her hands glowed faintly as she pressed them to his injuries, channeling healing energy. He groaned, the warmth easing the worst of the pain. "You," she whispered, "you are more than a soldier. You are extraordinary." He shook his head. "Just a man doing his duty. You'd do the same." She looked at him, awe and gratitude in her eyes. "I've seen my empire's might. I've seen generals and warriors. None have ever fought like you." I fight for what matters, he said quietly. Not for glory, not for power, but for people. She stayed silent for a long moment, considering his words. Loyalty, courage, determination, qualities she had never fully understood until now. The human forced himself to stand. We can't stay here, he said. They'll regroup. We need to move before more come. The Queen nodded, rising beside him. Lead the way. Together they left the plaza, limping and weary, but stronger than before. Every step they took echoed in the ruined city, a testament to their refusal to surrender. As they moved through the streets, the Queen looked at the human, truly seeing him for the first time. He was not a hero of legend nor a warrior of prophecy. He was simple, flawed, mortal, yet somehow that made him extraordinary. She whispered to herself, if all humans are like this, maybe my empire has underestimated them. They paused briefly in a ruined courtyard. The human knelt, checking their surroundings, ensuring no enemy lurked nearby. You've carried me through fire, bullets, and betrayal, she said softly. Why do you stay? He looked up at her, exhaustion clear in his eyes. Because no one else will. Because someone has to protect you. Not the Empire, not your guards. But someone who will never turn away. She swallowed hard, realizing that all the power in the galaxy could not have done what this one human had done. His courage, his loyalty, his unwillingness to run, it was something no ruler, no army could command. A distant rumble reminded them that the battle was far from over. New forces would come, more attacks would follow, but the bond between them had changed. They were no longer merely queen and soldier. They were a team united by survival, trust, and the fire of defiance. The human rose, limping slightly. Come on, he said. We've held the line long enough. Let's make sure this empire survives. The Queen nodded, raising her energy shield once more. Together they walked forward through the ruins, their shadows stretching long in the fading light. Above them the city trembled. Yet below, in the heart of chaos, two beings stood against the storm. One human, one alien, refusing to bow, refusing to flee. The night over SciFi-Prime was quiet, but it was the quiet of a city that had endured fire. Smoke still rose from broken towers, and occasional sparks lit the streets where the battle had raged. The Queen and the human moved cautiously through the ruins of her capital. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily upon them both. The Queen's silver crown was bent, her robes torn, her hands still glowed faintly from energy overuse. But her eyes, sharp and radiant, carried a resolve stronger than ever. The human walked beside her, limping from his wounds but alert, his weapon always ready. He had been through fire, bullets, betrayal, and countless near-death moments, yet his determination never faltered. They reached the central plaza, once a bustling heart of the empire, now a field of broken stone and ash. The air was still, thick with the smell of burning metal, but no enemy troops approached. The Queen stopped and looked at the destruction around her. My city, my empire, she whispered. It's broken. The human put a hand on her shoulder. It's not over until we decide it's over. You're still here. That means something. That means everything. She glanced at him, studying the way he carried himself despite exhaustion and wounds. She realized, as she had before, that no army, no guards, no council could have matched this one human's courage. Your bravery, your loyalty, she said softly. It has saved more than my life. It has saved hope. He shook his head. I didn't do it for hope. I did it because it was right, because someone had to stand when everyone else ran. She smiled faintly. His words reminded her of the lesson she had learned over the past days. Courage was not the absence of fear. It was action despite it. The city remained silent. In the distance, the first hints of dawn broke through clouds of ash, painting the ruined towers in orange and pink. But the threat was far from gone. Enemy forces could return, stronger and more prepared. They had to secure the city, and more importantly, they had to show the people that the Queen was still alive, that the Empire could endure. Follow me, the human said, limping slightly. He led her toward the underground transit hub they had discovered days before. We need a base, a place to plan and fight back if they come again. They entered the abandoned tunnels. The air was damp, echoing with the faint hum of machinery. Here, below the chaos, they were hidden from enemy eyes. The queen paused. This place, it is not my throne, nor my palace. And yet, I feel safe here with you. He smiled faintly. I'm not the palace, but I'll keep you alive as long as I can. Her lips pressed together. And I trust you. They spent hours restoring basic functions in the transit hub, patching energy conduits, and using what remained of the city's technology to build a temporary command post. The human worked tirelessly, despite his injuries. The queen observed, helping where she could, learning to rely on him and learning something about herself as well. This city, it needs more than just defense, she said quietly. It needs courage. People need to see that one can stand, even when all seems lost. He nodded. Then let's give them that courage. Together. Their first challenge came hours later. A small squad of enemy scouts attempted to infiltrate the city through the lower tunnels. They were well-trained, stealthy, and armed with advanced technology. The human had anticipated this. He had prepared traps, barricades, and ambush points throughout the lower city. Here, he whispered, motioning to a narrow corridor. They'll funnel right into this path. Stay close. The queen's energy pulsed in her hands. I have never killed anyone intentionally, she admitted softly. You may not need to, he replied. Sometimes strength alone is enough. The first of the enemy scouts entered the corridor. The human's traps activated, spikes rose from the floor, and walls slid down to block retreat. The queen's barrier flared, casting shadows across the hall. The enemy soldiers froze, terrified and confused. The human moved with calculated precision, neutralizing each scout without mercy. His movements were quick, exact, controlled, lethal, but disciplined. The queen watched, awe in her eyes. She had commanded armies, wielded energy, and ruled with authority, yet she had never seen bravery like this, unwavering, fearless, and completely selfless. The corridor was clear. The queen lowered her barrier, relief flooding her. You do not fight for glory, she said, studying him. Only for what is right. He nodded. That's the difference between a soldier and an emperor. You fight for power. I fight for survival, for life. The queen remained silent for a moment, thinking deeply. She had ruled for decades, relied on her generals, her guards, her people's obedience, but true courage, the kind that inspired and protected, she had never understood until now. They continued their patrols through the lower city, securing tunnels, guiding survivors, and reclaiming parts of the capital. Each victory, small though it was, bolstered morale. Word spread through the city. The queen is alive. The human stands beside her. The empire has hope again. Days passed. The queen and the human worked side by side. She learned to wield her energy more efficiently, while he taught her strategy, defense, and survival. Their bond grew, forged in fire, blood, and shared determination. One evening, as they rested in a partially rebuilt plaza, she spoke quietly. You have risked your life countless times for me. Why? He looked out over the ruins. Because no one else would. Because the galaxy is full of people who run, who hide. But someone has to stand. Someone has to protect what's right. Someone has to make sure hope survives. Her eyes softened. Then, you have done more than protect me. You have reminded me why I fight, why my empire must endure. He smiled faintly. Then fight, Your Majesty. Fight for them. And I'll fight with you. They rose together, moving through the streets. Each step echoed through the empty plaza, a symbol of defiance and survival. Soon the council realized the queen was not defeated. Reinforcements were dispatched, larger and more deadly than before. But the human and the queen had anticipated this. They had rallied survivors, repaired critical defenses, and set traps throughout the lower city. When the enemy arrived, they found not a ruined city, but a fortress alive with strategy and courage. Every attack was met with resistance, every move predicted and countered. The human fought at the front, his rifle steady, his body moving with efficiency and experience. The Queen unleashed waves of energy, forming shields, barriers, and flares guiding their forces. Together they were unstoppable. The battle raged for hours, but one truth became clear. The human had taught the Queen and her people something no one else could. Courage was contagious. Strength inspired loyalty. Hope created resilience. Finally, the Council forces retreated, broken and demoralized. Xerion Prime was still in ruins, but the Empire had survived. The Queen stood in the center of the capital, surveying the city, her silver eyes bright with determination. The human approached, limping but smiling. "We made it." She turned to him, her expression softening. "We made it, because of you, because you stood when everyone else ran." He shook his head. "I only did what had to be done. You led, I followed, and together, we protected what mattered." The Queen stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "No, you did more than follow. You were my shield, my strength, my courage when I had none left. You saved more than my life. You saved my empire." He smiled faintly. "Then my duty is done. But your fight, it's just beginning." The Queen nodded. "Yes. And now I understand. Leadership is not just command. It is courage, sacrifice, and standing even when fear grips every heart around you." He looked at her, nodding slowly. "Then your empire will survive, and you'll never be alone again." News of their survival spread across Xerion Prime. Survivors told tales of the human who refused to run, who faced enemies alone, who protected the Queen when all others fled. Legends were born in those stories, a human whose courage inspired an empire, a queen who learned to stand beside those she once thought beneath her notice. Months passed. The city slowly rebuilt. The Queen restored order, guided by newfound wisdom. And the human, injured, scarred but alive, remained at her side. One evening, on the balcony of the partially rebuilt palace, the Queen looked out over the city. Fires had been extinguished, streets were cleared, citizens returned to their homes. Life slowly returned. The human joined her, leaning on his rifle. "It's peaceful," he said quietly. "For now," she replied. "But we are ready for whatever comes next." He looked at her, his eyes reflecting the orange glow of the sunset. "You've changed, not because of the war, but because you've seen what true courage is." She smiled softly. "And you have taught me that one person, even a stranger from another world, can change everything by standing firm." He nodded. "Then our work is done, for now." The Queen placed her hand over his. "No, our work is never done. But with you, I am not afraid." The human looked at her, his face calm, determined, and yet softened by the bond they shared. "Then I'll stay, as long as I can." Above them, the twin suns dipped below the horizon. Shadows stretched long across the city, but the light remained, a symbol of survival, courage, and hope. In the years to come, stories would be told. Tales of a human who refused to run, who protected a queen, who inspired an empire to rise from ashes. His courage would be remembered across galaxies.